Okay, so we are out here today at The Ohio State University, and I'm just talking with my friend David here. David is a postdoctoral student here. He has a strong science background, and I'm Eric Chabot with the Ratio Christi Apologetics Ministry here, and I'm just asking David some questions. David's been here a long time on the campus, and I know he's very familiar with a lot of the arguments against God and some of the ways people think on the campus. So David, I just want to kind of ask you a few questions today. Would you say, over the course of your history on the campus, would you say there are kind of like the same kind of objections that come up to our faith? Would you say that they kind of they're always the same objections? Do you hear any new things, or what are some of the things you hear regularly?
The new stuff is always the bizarre stuff that I can't even make up on the spot, but the stuff I hear a lot is just usually just some form of the argument from suffering. That is why is there cancer if there's a God? Or some people say, well, why am I going to hell then? Because I don't want to accept God. So they'll argue that why doesn't God save everybody, which would be like the second argument I hear. Or lastly, they just think science has figured everything out, and if it hasn't figured everything out, then they will in the future.
Okay, so those are the three biggest objections you hear?
What I hear a lot.
Okay. Would you say overall on the campus you run into just a lot of people that haven't really been exposed to some of our best answers to these things, or it just kind of is from the internet? Where are they hearing this stuff?
Yeah, so if they actually have done some research, it's usually just watching some YouTube video clip that would refute, let's say, like William Lane Craig's, one of his arguments, and they just automatically believe it. Or they just read the New Atheists, like Richard Dawkins. Maybe they've read one of his books. But I don't really think they listen much to what the Christian side and Christian apologetics has to say, or they're even well read in all the different views, even from like an atheist or agnostic perspective. It's usually just latch onto one thing and they regurgitate the same stuff.
Okay. What would you say when it comes to like Christians, like in their beliefs? What do you think some of the hindrances are to them getting interested in learning about kind of like what they believe, why they believe, being able to learn some of the basics of apologetics? What have you seen some of the hindrances are to that?
One, I know some churches are changing this, but a lot of the mainstream churches are more concerned about like how can we get a lot of numbers, and we want to keep it young and relevant and change the music or change the format, and they aren't really concerned so much about why people believe what they believe. They're more concerned like, hey, we'll just present the gospel message, and for those people that are like doubting Thomases amongst us that want to see some evidence, they will actually seem to be turned off, because when they do have hard questions, I've heard it from atheists that they just will ask the question to a pastor, not get an answer, and then they leave the church, which I don't like to hear. So I think the reason that we don't see, I guess, Christians being equipped could be some things, the system the way it is now, and also a lot of these arguments can be really technical, and people don't necessarily have a grasp on the theology or the philosophy or the science behind them.
Okay. So would you say, how important is it, like on a major college campus like Ohio State? This is a huge campus, as you know. You've been here a long time. How important is it for just a presence of having like maybe say like an apologetics presence, where someone could say, you know what, there are answers to these things on the campus. I have access to them. I mean, how important that is that for like a large campus like this?
It's really important, because if you ever tried to talk to somebody about God or religion, they will bring up one of these common objections, and a lot of them you may or may not have an answer to. So you want to have a resource that you can go directly to and get those questions answered on a timely basis with someone that has them.
Okay. And would you say a lot of Christians still are assuming that all we need to do is just kind of give people the Bible and just preach the gospel, and that's going to do it with a lot of people?
Yeah, and that's not necessarily wrong, because God can save anybody. That's what he does. But I think God uses a variety of ways to save people, and it's not just going to be that he appears to somebody on a road and they see the risen Jesus, the risen Lord. So not all of these conversion stories are going to be the same. There's been a lot of people that have come to faith in Christ just simply by praying, and then God showing them some good arguments for himself.
Okay. So overall, would you say where we're headed as a country and as university goes, would you say that we're going to be getting, do you see us getting more skeptical and more cynical and more secular as time goes on, or what do you think as far as what you're seeing?
Well, I think what happens is we get really skeptical, but it becomes more of, if you believe it, then it must be true. So
Right.
it's kind of counterintuitive. So what happens is people get skeptical of other people's beliefs, and they become like grounded in their own, I guess, delusion, really. So each person is their own God, and they have their own truth. And so it's still a very relativistic society, and they'll say you're wrong because you're a Christian, but they won't go out and say that other people are wrong.
Right. Would you say the number one thing you see as far as truth, people are just kind of grasping onto like a pragmatic view of truth, where kind of like if it works for you,
yes,
that makes it true?
You know, I had someone that was an atheist explain to me that his idea of morality was basically your rights end where somebody else's rights begin, which is good. I have nothing quite like that. But then again, when you get into the nitty gritty, I don't want to be too political in this video, but if you look at something like gay marriage and you have one person's religious views and another person's idea of what's right, they are in direct conflict with each other. And when you don't have a moral grounding about absolute truth and absolute morality, it can get those little nice little sayings seem to fall apart, because there's going to be conflict where you think your rights will eventually interfere with somebody else's rights.
Okay, one last quick question. What would you say that for you personally is the most strongest, what's the best like piece of evidence for you for the, you know, for your faith, what you believe, why you believe? What's the one thing that kind of stands out, or is there one thing?
It's a compilation of a lot of things, because it's experience that I personally have, which would be I guess relative to me, as well as the logical stuff that I think about, and I can't see any other way other than God. Like, why do objective moral values exist? I think that's rooted solely in the fact that there is a God. But if I had to pinpoint one thing, me being a scientist, I look back on our history as the Earth and as a human history and how we came to be here, and I just don't see that there's any naturalistic explanation for that that's feasible. So I just see design in it.
Great. Okay. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Have a great day. All right.